Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. It means a lot to me. Thank you very, very, very much. Today, we welcome along another person who's interested in voice, accents, and everything in between to get your voice heard on stage and, of course, everywhere you go in this business. And that is the great Alix Dunmore. Let's take a moment to introduce Alix. She trained at the Bristol Vic, and she has credits in films such as The Pod Generation, 10 audiobooks, including The Position of Spoons for Penguin Books, directed by Kate MacDonald. For radio, The Man Who Fell to Earth, A Matter of Life and Death. For TV, Doctors, Holby City, Call the Midwife, and Haven for Amazon Prime, which I think you just finished season 2, didn't you, recently?
Oh, I was only in season one.
Oh, season 1. Okay, I beg your pardon. For stage, she has done a lot of work with the Factory Theatre Company, including Macbeth, Julius Caesar, Bodies at the Southwark Playhouse, Cinderella at the Norwich Theatre Royal, and the Silver Cord at the Finborough Theatre, for which she received an Offie nomination. And as mentioned earlier, she's also a dialect coach who's worked with actors, producers, and even people who aren't in the arts at all. From people from different workplaces, executive producers, actors at Shakespeare's Globe, and the Chichester Festival, just to name a few. And if you want any advice on acting or accent coaching specifically, you can go to her website and contact her directly. The link to her website is down below in the description. So without further ado, Alix, hello.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It's a lot more than 10 audiobooks. I
Oh,
will
yeah.
just amend that.
Yeah, so I did not say more than 10.
Yeah, no, you said, yeah, you said,
I,
yeah.
definitely more than 10, yeah. But
Yes.
you've spent a lot of time in studios, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I find it very meditative.
Yeah,
Sit down and read a book. And luckily, I'm very, very good at sight reading,
yeah.
which means that it's worth it for me because it's not brilliantly paid doing audiobooks.
Mm.
But for me, I really enjoy it, so it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get onto that in just a moment. But we start at the beginning, of course, with every guest. So in your case, Alix, where did the love of acting, the arts, and voice work, where did it all come from?
Yeah, well, my mum is an actor, sort of say is tentatively because she hasn't got an agent anymore and she's 76 and she doesn't do much these days. But, if someone offered something to her, she probably would.
Mm.
Um, and my dad was a director and an author of books on acting. And for most of sort of the last 25 years of his life, he taught at drama schools.
Ah,
Um, and so that world was just my world. Definitely the theatre world was very open to me. And for when I was a kid, I would enjoy. I got taken to the theatre from about the age of 4,
mm.
and wardrobe ladies would be my babysitter in a theatre while one of my parents was either in or directing a play. And the bar afterwards, I could have an appetizer in the in the bar and climb around the tables, and my parents' actor friends would buy me presents, and it just seemed very glamorous. And then of course when I became a teenager, it seemed really cringy.
Mm.
Why were they so loud and like behaving like they were young when they were so old? And and people would say, "You're going to be an actress like your mummy," and I'd be like, "Oh no." Obviously not. We don't get proper Christmas presents. Sometimes we did, but there were a lot of lean years because it's a very variable profession.
Yeah.
But I was a very, very shy kid, debilitatingly shy.
Mm.
And my mum sat me down at one point and said, "You're just going to have a lot more. You're going to get a lot more out of life if you're not clinging to my legs all the time." And you can't. Do you know what you can do? You can just pretend not to be shy. Try that. I do that all the time. And
Mm.
I was like, wow, what a concept. And they sent me to a drama club. And I grew up in St Albans in Hertfordshire.
Yeah, and that's where I live.
That's it.
Yeah.
Ha! Brilliant. Oh,
Yeah.
well, wonderful place. Wonderful amateur theatre scene
Mm.
at the Abbey Theatre. And they had
Mm.
fantastic drama classes. And suddenly, having been sort of bullied at school, and well, at primary school, not so much, but then at secondary school, yes, very much.
Mm.
I was cock of the walk at drama club.
Yeah.
That was something that people respected me because I was the best at it. and and I got given Shakespeare parts. I played Viola and Helena there. I did the Deep Blue Sea. by Terence Rattigan, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful play. Death of a Salesman.
Oh,
Um,
classic.
yeah, just playing tiny parts because those latter two were for the adult company. So I would be girl, or I can't remember the name of the young neighbour in Deep Blue Sea, but I played her.
Yeah.
But it gave me a lot of experience, and then I realised at about the age of 15, when you're sort of being pressured into deciding what A levels to do, so that you can then get your what you require to go to university. So therefore, you have to think about what university you want to go to and what you want to study there. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to. I think I want to go to drama school. So I told my parents that, and they kind of sighed and went, you could
Mm.
just keep being the best one at whatever amateur theatre company is in the town where you end up living.
Yeah.
You could just be like, you could play any part you liked, and you could just do that for the rest of your life, and it would be really fun. And you could have a regular income and go on holidays and make commitments to go to your friends' weddings, and have proper Christmas presents every year. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to. So yeah, then I went to drama school, and I wasn't the best one anymore.
Mm. And then you're all in competition with each other.
Well, I mean, it was at Bristol, though. It's a very small school, and that they didn't feel like, and they because they take people who are all very different, so that everybody in your year, they're not competing for parts
Mm.
really,
Mm.
and they try and make it fair that everybody gets at least one good role in each production. So yeah, but yes, when you come out of drama school, of course, everybody's in competition.
Yeah, it's a tough world out there, but we love it. So tell me about the so do you still have memories of the Abbey Theatre, and
Yeah.
so what were some of your favourite moments?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, um, I don't know. Just I've been doing Shakespeare in the rain with a bin bag over my costume, doing
Mm.
Midsummer Night's Dream in the rain in Verulamium Park.
Yes.
Um, I'm still friends. Like I made friends with I was Helena, and I'm made very good friends with the girl who's playing Moth, and I still am. Still good friends with Wall as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
know.
What were their names? I might know them.
They're not actors.
Are they
Oh,
not acting?
I mean, they don't. Well, no, they don't live there anymore.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So it's been a while. But yeah, so you were mentioning in the intro you went to drama school there, and you went to Bristol Old Vic, the very prestigious school. Yeah, how was your training? How was Bristol?
Yes, it was. It was a bit old-fashioned when I went there. There was a heavy emphasis on dance,
Mm.
which I haven't really used. Lots of stage combat, which was fun, but again, I have not used it. Lots and lots of emphasis on voice, which obviously I'm incredibly grateful for now,
Mm.
because it means that when I'm working with people, when I'm working as a dialect coach with people who aren't actors, and that's more voice and accent coach with people who aren't actors, because they don't need a specific dialect unless they want to do that for fun, which some of them do. It means that how to breathe, you'd be surprised how few people actually know how to breathe
Mm.
properly, in a way that will help the power and strength and longevity of your voice and the health of your voice. So
Mm.
to be able to have that, to be really, really confident with that basic knowledge of how to breathe,
Yeah.
how to be loud without hurting yourself, and how to articulate,
Mm.
and the warm-ups that you can pick and choose between, that will help with all those things. We had just a huge grounding in that at Bristol, which was great. They really taught us stage acting. There
Mm.
could have been a bit more TV stuff, but this was 20 years ago, so
Yeah.
I'm sure they do now.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned there about well, that's one thing I learned as well, just how you go back to the basics of breathing, articulation, and stuff. We had a fantastic teacher called Chris Palmer, who's also been on here and stuff. Yeah, so how do people? This is a very odd question, but how do people breathe properly then?
Well, they breathe into their diaphragm. And I remember working with a guy who, a CEO of a big business, who I was like, so when you breathe into your diaphragm, it's going to feel like your stomach is pushing out. Feel like if you think I'm going to breathe into my stomach, obviously you're not. That's not physically what's happening, but your stomach will come out. And he was like, I can't do that. When I breathe, my stomach goes in because my chest goes out. I'm like, okay, well, try the other way. He's like, no, that's not physically possible. And eventually I persuaded him that it was. But like, if all you're doing is chest breathing, you can't take as deep breaths. You therefore don't have the power to speak long sentences without having to take a breath. You can't be as loud as you could be. And it just feels really nice to breathe into the diaphragm. It feels more grounding. It feels, therapeutic.
Yeah, it's also like, the key words like articulation, resonance, and there's some more, but my brain doesn't retain any of them. But I'm sure they're there somewhere. But one thing I learned was that, and this is kind of a thing for accents as well, is how like the placement of certain sounds at certain places in your mouth and the way that you can get resonance. And this is one thing I learned particularly like in singing, is that if you sing kind of with not with your mouth closed, obviously, but you're singing with not a lot of space coming out, means that more sound is being pushed out through there. So there's more, so you'll get more volume, more resonance, and more power in your voice actually by actually making your mouth smaller and more kind of like, in a specific way. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And it's the same thing with breathing. I work with a lot of people, again, those very, very basic things of you take a breath into your diaphragm and then you let it out on this tiny little U-shaped aperture of your mouth. The smaller it is, the longer it can take for that breath to come out, which is so helpful for breath control. And people find that really difficult and start going, and then it's all gone because that aperture is big. But if you go like that and sort of end up sounding like a deflating balloon, it's that's a really good exercise.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of like stuff which crosses over to singing as well. It's like a lot of your stuff is all about singing and finding like the quality of, there's like certain cheats of, I don't know if cheat's the right word, but say if you've got like a big note or a big like safe shout, which I'll ask you about in a second actually, but like you take like a short little and then go, and then suddenly it's all there. Then suddenly you've got from this tiny little breath, suddenly then you've got all this huge wave of stuff that comes out of you. You're thinking, where the hell does that come from? Yeah, how does that work?
I mean, I don't know really. I suppose, but it's in conjunction with a lot of things. Like you wouldn't do that without warming up. So that warm up that you've done has helped with that. Has helped to keep your voice limber, because with anything, with articulation, with doing a workout, with singing, with speaking loudly or shouting, you have to get flexible first before you can do something rigid. And a shout is quite a rigid thing. But if everything's loose, like, and your vocal cords you've done some humming, you've done some breathing, your stance and your posture, you've made sure that's, however you're going to stand, you've done some warm up, some physical warm up, so that it's not locked. That even if you need to, make a powerful stance, that if someone pushed you, you'd be able to kind of roll with that because you're flexible. So yes, I think just that everything that you've warmed up goes into that, and then you're able to do that, because you can't just say to someone that's never done that before, okay, take a little breath and then shout, because they don't know. They haven't done the bit before.
Yeah, how does it work? No, but again, you mentioned about. Again, another thing is all about posture as well, because like how important that is. Because if you're like, if I'm going to demonstrate this, like if you're slouched over, then obviously that's going to affect your voice. Whereas if you stand tall, then then you've got clear access to that or anything. And that was something that kind of now looking back, I should have thought, yeah, that's basic level stuff. But actually, it's really important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's something I can definitely thank Bristol Old Vic for, because I'm tall, and therefore tall, especially women, tend to stoop a bit, certainly when we're growing up, because everybody wants to be like everybody else when they're at school. So I got to drama school 5'8", with slumped shoulders and a jutting chin. And I left drama school 5'9 3/4 with,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. With all of that, at least when I'm conscious of it, I can sort it out. But I know that it helps, and I know it looks better as well.
Yeah. And that's interesting. A voice can help you grow a few inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was more my dance teacher kind of hitting me on the back and going, stand up straight.
It just hit you. Stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's another thing as well. Safe shouting and safe laughing. How does that work?
Well, again, you've got to warm up. I mean, safe laughing. I think, yeah. I mean, it's all the same thing, really. You've got to do your resonance warm up and your breathing warm up. You've got to make sure that, yeah, I think if you can have a good posture when you're doing it, it really, really helps, because to have that kind of clear channel from your lungs to your throat, from your diaphragm to your throat, means that there's no tension there, there's nothing hindering it. And therefore you're not going to hurt yourself. But doing the resonance warm up, humming, singing. I nearly always do a singing warm up when I'm doing a stage play.
Yeah.
I have to do a lot of shouting. But it's certainly when I'm working with the factory and doing Shakespeare. So yeah, it's the warm up, and then making sure you do take a deep breath just before you do it, and just kind of check whether you have put any tension into your body and try and get rid of it before you do it.
What's like some of the things that you should avoid, like for your voice? Because I've heard chocolate's bad, I've heard coffee's bad, I've heard
Everything's bad. Everything's
yeah,
bad. Yeah, I had a friend who trained in opera before she came to Bristol Vic and trained with me. And she said they weren't allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed vinegar on their chips. They weren't allowed any kind of acidity. So no lemon juice. Like, there's lots of vocal remedies that people push, like, oh, raspberry vinegar with honey. Well, no vinegar is good for your voice. No acid is good for your voice. And honey, if you've got a sore throat, the sugar
yeah,
can multiply the bacteria. So it's lovely and it feels soothing, but it's actually not going to help. Although placebo is powerful. So
right,
if it does work for you, then carry on. Don't listen to
yeah,
me. But I say, sod all that. I say, if you're in a musical, yes, it's your duty to take care of your voice. And I'm sorry, you can't have any fun and you can't drink any alcohol and you can't stay out late.
mm,
And if you're not, then just keep an eye on yourself and look after your vocal health, but don't stop eating things that you like eating. Don't stop eating chocolate, please.
no. I
Be
mean,
silly.
we're not saying that at all, of course.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, I would say if you're doing an audiobook, don't eat chocolate, because you can get that sort of claggy thing that
yeah,
happens. If you're going on stage, you can probably just, have a few swallows and keep going. But yeah, audiobooks, yeah, don't. Yeah, lots of audiobooks, lots of lemon and ginger tea.
yeah. Stay away from your Cadbury's, guys, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's all this thing about you mentioned there about maintaining the voice and everything, and I've sort of thankfully I think my voice is actually a lot better now. It wasn't too good last year. I think I had a bad experience with a singing teacher last year, and yeah, it left my voice sort of not paralyzed. That's the wrong word, but yeah, it wasn't the same for about 6 or 7 months or
Oh,
something.
blimey. Wow.
Yeah, it just I don't know what it was. I mean, I remember I actually went to the doctor and actually, they stuck that camera down my throat and everything, and they said, "Is everything all right?" They said, "No, you're fine. You're fine. It's all good. You just need to rest." And I thought, yeah, actually, that's a good thing. How important is vocal rest? Because you hear all these. There are some stories out there who say that some actors don't talk for days on end, and they say it's all because of vocal rest. Does that actually work, or is that?
Again, if you're in a musical and you feel anything wrong with your voice, it's a really good idea. When I did Panto, Cinderella in Norwich that you mentioned.
Hmm.
We all got so ill. It was just pre-COVID,
Oh,
so we just carried on.
perfect timing.
And I got really, and I was singing, and I got so ill that at one point no sound was coming out when I was doing the songs, and we were mic'd, and they turned my mic up, and I could just about speak. And luckily there were two of us. I was an ugly sister, so she kind of took the lion's share, and then when she lost her voice, I took the lion's share, and I didn't speak at all in the days while I could feel that my voice wasn't well, and I had an app on my phone where I would get a little robot lady to say things for me. Um, so yes, if you have to sing, or I guess if you're doing a play somewhere where you really have to project, like the Globe or something, or outdoor theatre, or a really big massive theatre, and you're not mic'd, and you feel like your voice hurts, and it doesn't sound healthy, then vocal rest is really important. Yes.
Yeah.
But then you've got to gently warm up at an appropriate time before you go on again. Probably start gently humming about an hour before you need to go on again, I could say, because then if you haven't spoken all day, the first time you speak cannot be the first line.
Yeah.
Stayed.
Yeah, you have to speak beforehand and stuff. I remember someone had we're doing a show at university, and someone had to go see. I think she had to go see the doctor or something, and to have like they basically looked at her tonsils. I'm not sure she had them out or not, and they basically said, "Okay, cool. All right, everything's all right, but we need you not to speak today at all."
Wow.
And it's like, okay, here's the thing. So I've got a show to do. I've got two shows to do today, a matinee and an evening, and I'm the narrator of the whole piece. So I speak quite a lot. Luckily, she was fine. She was no problem at all. She got through both shows and she was okay. But it was that initial thing of like, okay, what do I do now? And yeah, and that's like an interesting lead on, because there have been some points, and thankfully I've been singing again recently and things are sounding much better, thank you God. And it's about 90% there, still got another 10%, but we always get there. So if there's anyone out there who's watching or listening to this who is going through that phase of like their voice is just not the same anymore, like they're struggling, and people might think, oh my God, I've lost my voice. I can't speak anymore. I can't sing. I'm projecting more. It's like, calm down. Okay. And it's just a little phase. You'll get through it. So what's the best advice you can give to people to get their voice back if they are struggling with it right now?
Yeah, vocal rest is really good. Anything that boosts your immune system, like ginger, garlic, turmeric. I will sometimes make myself a little potion of like minced up ginger and garlic, turmeric, honey, yes, because it just binds everything together and it tastes nice. Sometimes a bit of chili, yeah. And again, apple cider vinegar, I've already said don't use vinegar, but it's really good for your immune system. So I'm kind of balancing these things and, making it taste acceptable. And I'll just have a spoonful of that. But you can get like those ginger shots. I love those. They're really expensive, so you can just have some ginger in some tea. But yeah, that kind of thing, and gently, yeah. If you're on that day, then yeah, really starting your warm up very, very gently, just very quietly humming, as low as feels comfortable, and then kind of sirening very quietly for a bit up and down, and exploring your range and how much of it you have. Sometimes there is something wrong. Sometimes people get nodules, and sometimes that's cured with vocal rest, and sometimes it requires surgery. But that can be a bit hit and miss as well. Yes. So if it doesn't get better and you're doing all the right things, then you probably should see a specialist. But yeah, generally rest and take care of yourself.
Yeah, rest and recovery.
Whole immune system, not just your voice.
Yeah, exactly. It all fits together in the end. But what's the best way to warm down?
I don't know, really. I don't tend to. I don't know. I've never had a problem with my voice. I mean, I guess I have quite a resonant voice anyway. And then we did so much work on it at drama school that's all very instinctual to me. I do a really long vocal warm up before any theatre thing I do, whether that's at the Finborough, which is a tiny theatre, or outside. I don't know if you need to warm down. Maybe you do when you're doing musicals, but I haven't done much musical theatre work.
Yeah, sure. No, it's interesting. I know some people say like it's just a simple note where you just do like your whole range, so like a quiet. They said their siren just a few seconds ago, just like a quiet siren all the way up and all the way down and all the way up and all the way down. So basically like a mild warm up or something. But then your voice is like your voice is kind of like on on a coming on a they said on a come down, but you know, it's resting itself back to like where it needs to be, and then you can warm it up again the next day.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, again, that would be for more really intense work, like doing a really involved musical
Yeah,
or shouting outside.
yeah. You know, with some singers, some people feel like they sing from here instead of the throat. Is that a thing, or is that just?
Yeah, I suppose that could be to do with the placement of the articulators. Like if you haven't got that, if your posture isn't right, then that can affect where you're singing from. If you're taking shallow breaths from the lungs rather than from the diaphragm, that can from the chest rather than the diaphragm, that can affect it. If the tongue position, if the tongue is being kind of retracted backwards or lifted upwards, that can kind of change that aperture in the throat. So yeah, lots of those things can help. I'm not a singing teacher, so I wouldn't.
No, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, just want to get your opinion on that. So, yeah, but it's kind of all relative, I suppose, in the end. So yeah, let's jump into your accent work. You know, I've checked your website out. You've got some fantastic testimonials on there. It feels like there's not an accent that anyone can throw at you that you don't know. And but very quickly, actually, before we get into it, I know before we started recording, but what was that accent that you still have to look up and sort of look at now?
I've actually forgotten. That's hilarious.
You said it was like a mixture of Scottish and
Oh,
Scandinavian.
yes, thank you. Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that's not the only one. If
yeah,
anything,
sure.
well, yes, so I mentioned the Isle of Skye accent because someone recently said, "Oh, I'd like to do that for fun." And I was like, "That would be fun. Do you have any recordings of it?" Because it's quite hard to find people speaking for any length of time doing it. And ideally, when you're learning an accent, you want to listen to a variety of people, or I do anyway. So that's a hard one. But anything that doesn't get asked for very often, yes, I'll have to go back and learn it. Just like, you know, if I'd learnt a part and I was doing it every night, then I wouldn't forget the lines. But if I was understudying and not going over the lines every night, then I'd be in trouble. So there are plenty of accents that I get asked for all the time that I do on a weekly basis that I don't have to do any prep for, basically. And then plenty that are much more specific that I'm like, ooh, I don't know how to do that. Let's find out. So like when there's lots of different Eastern European accents, for example, when somebody comes to me and goes, I need Estonian or Latvian or Hungarian. And I go, right, I have notes on that. I'm going to need half an hour to brush it up. And if it's something I've never done before, then a few hours. But that list of accents is dwindling. Once I helped two people for the same audition, and the casting director had asked for, it said in capital letters in the email, authentic Old English, or don't bother, something like that. And it's like, okay, that's a different language, sweetheart.
What does that even mean?
And how do you know what that sounds like? Do you?
No,
Do you?
don't.
No, so I was like, okay, well, right. There's no right way to go about this. And these people are going to get such a variety of accents from all over the world with people trying to work out what you mean. So I spoke to a friend who is an actor and brilliant at accents and studied as part of his degree, I think Old English and Old Norse or something like that. And so we sort of talked through how someone might sound if they were speaking modern English, but in the kind of that really old accent. And really, I think what they meant was kind of Chaucerian English rather than, which is Middle English.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it was still written in modern English, obviously. Otherwise you'd need subtitles.
Yeah.
And with those two actors, one of them had Scouse in her family and one had Irish in her family. So I'm like, well, really, because we don't know what these people might have sounded like, and there probably were wildly different accents all over England anyway. Why don't you lean towards Scouse, and why don't you, obviously Scouse is maybe not obviously, but Scouse is a very young accent, but it has lots of elements of much, much older accents. And why don't you lean to a little bit more towards Irish? And so I sort of created an Old English accent with these two different people that were slightly different. So that was very, very challenging because I couldn't listen to anything. I could listen to people kind of giving their opinion on what they thought it might have sounded like, but they were all different. and I can use my research and guessing and collaborating with each actor. So that was very challenging, but really fun. And I couldn't do that for you now.
No, no, no. You've stolen my next question already. Okay, come on, do it. I'm joking. No, that's you mentioned there like the Chaucerian English. Like imagine if it was. Have you read the Canterbury Tales?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's for anyone who hasn't, it's English like it's not even like Shakespeare is more understandable than the Canterbury Tales. I mean, the Canterbury Tales they're very, very good, very interesting and fantastic stories, but it's like it's almost like Klingon.
You have to have a kind of dictionary or key with you to be able to understand them.
Yeah, it's like I've only read the Pardoner's Tale. We studied it for A level, and it was like along came a pardoner with his hair as yellow as weeks, and yellow is spelled W-E single L-O-W, and wax is spelled W-E-X, and you're going right, okay. How are we going to study this exactly?
Yeah.
But once you translate it, like you say, get subtitles, it's all good. But yeah, God, you must have read some weird briefs in your time where people have brought you some briefs like Old English or Go Home or Don't Even Bother Turning Up. I mean, but by the way, that's outrageous. Why would you put that on audition tape?
I know.
Audition form, like don't audition for those guys, people. Come on. But what other stuff have you had? Like
weird briefs. Oh, all sorts. It's just sometimes people don't know what they want, and so I sometimes wonder whether they're making it intentionally obtuse, so that they'll get a variety and then go, oh yes, that one. I want that one. God, I don't know. Or I'd love to think of a good example.
Yeah. Right, no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, but just like when people say, and this has happened a couple of times recently, when they say transatlantic or mid-Atlantic, that can mean so many different things. So you're like, I'll be like, okay, what period are we in? Okay, so they probably mean like Katharine Hepburn if it's, between the 20s and 50s. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But if it's modern, then what do you mean? Do you mean someone that sounds a bit American and a bit English? And how American do you want, or how English do you want? That's annoying. Yeah, it's when people say that. I mean, this is every dialect coach's bugbear, but when people say general Scottish or general Northern or general Irish, and someone goes, oh, they've just asked for general Irish, can you help me? And I'll be like, okay.
Where in Ireland?
North or south? And they're like, I don't think it matters. It definitely matters.
Okay.
That one matters.
It definitely is. It Cork? Is it Dublin? Is it Belfast?
Yeah, exactly, because they're incredibly different. There's a huge, as is there throughout the UK. There's an incredible accent. We must have the highest accent diversity in the world in islands.
I'd be very surprised if we weren't. Yeah, because like you say, London, and like, okay, which borough? Are we going to Southend? No, not Southend. Are we going to Brixton? Are we going to Islington? Are we going to Mayfair? Are we going to Covent Garden? Are we going to Barking, Cockfosters, Piccadilly? Like there's so many different.
And also, when people say London accent, what do you mean? Do you mean posh London? Do you mean like me? Or do you mean Cockney? Or do you mean South London? Or do you mean like really obnoxiously posh modern Londoner? I need specifics, and then often there aren't any, and you've just got to kind of work it out with the person you're working with.
I think Michael McIntyre does this joke where he talks about like the polar opposites of the country and how it's quite different. Like you start in Norwich and you get to London, and then you get to my mind's just gone blank. What's on the west coast over there? What's over there? Cornwall or something like that.
Yeah, Plymouth and Devon and yeah.
Devon, yeah. It's so the joke goes like you walk across the country like this. All right, hello, all right, and then it's and then
that's correct.
Yeah, and then it's obviously like it's kind of the same thing, but yeah, it's interesting how I never thought of it like that. Actually, we're a very diverse country. I'm sure I mean, many other countries around the world probably have the same thing, but how you can have one language, but yet you've got so many different sounds to it. it's
Absolutely. And in terms of how much those accents will differ within a matter of miles must be unique in the
yeah,
world, because there are lots of accents in America, but they've got much bigger spaces between those accents
yeah,
because it's just bigger. So yeah, it's fascinating. And that's another thing, like the standard British accent, which American casting directors ask for. And you're like, great, okay.
right. Which
Or
one?
like when casting directors say, neutral, not RP. So RP, received pronunciation, is basically the way I speak, a modern version of RP.
Yeah,
I don't do the very correct version. I know how to, but it is basically how I speak. So when it says neutral, not RP, you're like, well, what do you want then? And what they mean is don't do it posh and don't do it correct. So probably I'm all right. I might need to kind of tone it down and rough it up a bit. But
yeah,
when people who are not, for whom English is not their first language,
yeah.
when actors I see that brief, they are so confused. And they come to me and go, what does it mean? And I go, oh, well, there's a whole spectrum. Lots of drama schools are calling it SEA, standard English accent,
Yeah,
NSE, neutral standard English accent,
yeah,
British standard accent, something like BSA. Yeah, there are all sorts of new acronyms for it. And there's a huge spectrum. And you need to be able to, if the casting director says, that's great, can you make it more London, or can you make it more posh? That you're expected to be able to just do that. And that's fine for me because I grew up in these environs, but it's really not fine for someone Italian who's developed a really good RP, but doesn't know where to begin to rough it up.
yeah. It's so when you say to these people like neutral standard English, what is the accent? Is it yours that you use
Yes,
pretty
it's
much?
it's mine. It's slightly less posh than mine, I would say, with
Yeah,
and just a few key things that you can do that make it sound a bit more modern, a bit younger, but it's a minefield because it's knowing what sounds posh and what doesn't, and those rules aren't consistent. Like, for example, yesterday I was working with someone. He's Danish, and he's developing a really good neutral English accent, and in inverted commas, making the rest of England cringe and and the rest of the British Isles. But he said at one point, postpone, which just, I'm like, ooh, that's really posh. You have to say postpone.
postpone, mate. Yeah,
Yeah. And there was another one. I wonder if I can find it in my notes. That I'm like, oh, sorry, that just sounds incredibly posh. Oh, I hope I can. Oh, yeah. Um, Interest versus interest. You can say interesting, but if you say, "Oh yes, it was a great interest," it sounds really posh. So you have to say it was a great interest.
yeah. It's like,
It's me. Luckily, that's my world,
yeah,
and I've been paying attention my whole life, so I can do that. I can give those tiny, tiny details. Going, "Ooh, don't say that. It's this." So definitely with the accents on the spectrum of RP, and mostly with general American, because I've been paying attention to that my whole life as well.
yeah. It's like you're very aware of like the you talk about fine details in this
Yeah.
thing, but like you pay attention to every single word and every single pitch and every single like volume and placement and everything, and
Yeah,
it's
rhythm, tune,
rhythm
energy,
tune,
like how
pitch.
is it coming out of the mouth, if at all?
Yeah,
Yeah, and the rhythm is so important. In most native accents of English, we have prescribed vowel lengths, and
yeah,
that makes us unique in most other languages, because most other languages, A, you can trust the spelling a lot more, and B, if you want to emphasize a word, then go ahead, lengthen it. But here, it just sounds weird with certain words because they're supposed to have short vowels. I mean, you get a lot of variation there. There are certain accents where you can do whatever you like. In most of the southern states of America, you can lengthen any word you like because it's a much more musical sound. But standard American, no. And also you've got to learn what those prescribed vowel lengths are in each accent.
mm,
So it's like in Glaswegian, they're pretty much opposite to what they are in RP. And
yeah,
people can really fall down there because when they're trying to do a Scottish accent and they're not shortening the long vowels and lengthening the short vowels, they end up in Yorkshire.
yeah, yeah. But what's the difference between Edinburgh and Glasgow? Because
Well, I mean, my mum is Glaswegian, so again, I'm pretty good with the details of Glaswegian as well. And she always says, "Posh, Glasgow can sound like Edinburgh, and rough Edinburgh can sound like Glasgow. It's if we're talking like, you know, the stereotypical Glasgow accent and the stereotypical Edinburgh accent that people would immediately go, oh, I know what that is if they know their accents. Then Edinburgh tends to have light L's. So a lot of Scottish accents will have the la, the dark L, like that. So this is a kind of, you know, slowed down, careful Glasgow accent. And then this is an Edinburgh accent, which is just a bit posher, a bit more drawly, and it has those light L's. So la, I'm using the tongue tip there.
Yeah, and yeah, that's another thing. Dark L's, light L's. Yeah, explain what they are. I need to
Yeah,
refresh my
so
memory.
the light L is what both you and I use before a vowel sound, and that's using my tongue tip at the front of the mouth.
Yeah,
And then, or a dark L, we tend to use at the ends of words or before consonants, like in
yeah,
building, for example. But sometimes we're going to replace those with a W substitute and say, like, always, for example. You're not going to say always every
no,
time.
no, no.
But, you know, there's plenty of accents that only use one of those. So a Southern Irish accent will generally use only light L's. So they say film instead of film, or film even. And many Scottish accents, most Yorkshire and Lancashire accents, lots of other accents will use a dark L consistently, like this.
Mm,
That you get that. A general American accent uses dark L's throughout.
mm,
So yes, and many Northern European accents use and Southern European accents actually use consistently light L's. And
yeah,
then you get into Eastern Europe, and that changes a lot. Russians use mostly dark L's, but there are some light L's because they have a special character for a light L. So
yeah,
sometimes they associate it with certain words. Polish don't tend to be as heavy with that, and they don't keep things as far back. So that can vary. Yeah, and you just have to listen out for details like that in your consonants, and it
yeah.
will that those foundations of that accent.
Yeah, I've got so many more like questions for you about different like areas and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna go do. I would like to do the little segment now of different accents. I hope you don't mind putting on the spot like this. But so the difference between a Parisian accent and south of France. What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, south of France can be really like it's slower, it's more kind of jerky, and
Yeah.
it can like for example, and I don't know because this is the thing, I don't get asked for a South of France accent or a Paris accent. I
Oh,
get most asked for a French accent, and then we just do the kind of French accent that I can easily listen to on the
mm,
internet.
mm,
Um, and the accent that I do when I go to France and speak French,
yeah.
which I'm going to Marseille on Sunday, so I can find out about the Marseille accent for you.
Okay.
Get back to you. But
Yeah, absolutely.
for
Yeah.
example, I went to Bordeaux a few years ago, and a guy in a shop said maintenant, and Paris would be maintenant, as in the word maintenant, which means
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So it's more nasal. A south of France accent tends to be more nasal, more kind of lip spread
Hmm.
and tight. You don't get as much forward lip movement as you do in Paris.
Hmm.
Is a bit jerkier, and the sounds are a bit kind of brighter and more nasal because there's just that different space in the mouth. Whereas Paris, I mean Paris. I don't know if I'm doing an authentic Paris accent, but this is the way that my friends sound that come from around there, and that's much more kind of focused forward with the lips coming forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought Paris was kind of a bit like obviously you've shown me that now, but I always thought if someone asked me to do a French accent, I sort of take the piss a little bit and I go like a typical French person would see a British tourist walking down the road and they say, "Excuse me, can you help me find?" And they go, "I don't know who you are. I don't give a shit."
Well, yes. I mean, I think in a lot of European cities like Paris and Barcelona, they're getting a bit fed up with English tourists.
Yeah, I bet they are.
Certainly they are in Barcelona. And so that, and also because we all get taught French in school, why can't we bloody speak it?
No,
So I
I
think there are
hated French. I
Did
hated
you?
it. Yeah, no, but don't get me wrong, now I love the accent, and I think coming to it fresher, if I had to learn it for a part or something, I'm like, yes, bring it on, please. But at school, oh God, slight confession, if my French teacher is listening to this, I'm sorry, I gave up, I didn't revise because I hated it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't try, and rightfully I failed that GCSE, but hey, doesn't matter. Still got nine of them, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But, this New York is another one. I love the fact that New York, you've got Queens, you've got Long Island, you've got Hell's Kitchen, you've got the Bronx. What's a Hell's Kitchen accent?
I don't know. No one's ever asked me for that.
Okay.
I mean, what I get asked for is a New York accent or a
Yeah.
Brooklyn accent or a Bronx accent, and they're generally all asking for the same thing, which is an
Mm,
accent that as it isn't as prevalent as it used to be. It's a bit like Cockney in that the people that used to live in East London have been priced out of living in East London, and Cockney itself is dying out, and MLE, Multicultural London English, is much more the accent of youth in all around London, and a proper Cockney. To hear a proper Cockney voice, especially in someone younger than about 50, is a surprise these
mm.
days. And yeah, sure, you do get people with lots of different, really strong New York centric accents, but it doesn't happen. It's really difficult to find real people that really speak like that. It's much more, but you need both those accents for TV and film because they're asked for.
Oh
So,
yeah.
in a sense, we're as actors sort of making them up, or at least doing an outdated version of what people sound like sometimes. It's
Yeah.
not as common as it is on TV and in films.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't know the difference between yeah, I can tell you the entire spectrum of RP,
Yeah.
and but no, I've just got my kind of standard Brooklyn.
Okay. I got just maybe one or two more. Okay. North Italy, South Italy.
Again, I think, and again, no one's ever asked me for the distinction. They've said I need to do an Italian accent, but I
Okay.
think because one of my students is Northern Italian, that again, that's more nasal,
Mm,
and you'll get them a bit more like this. Instead
mm.
of like, I know I've gone Spanish, I can't do it. Instead of like this, which is Southern Italy, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. So when someone, I suppose like one thing that really must grind your gears, if you don't mind me saying, is that when someone says like what you said the last few moments is like when someone says general Italian or general English or general French, general Spanish, general Russian, general Australian or something like that, and you're literally just going, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What does that
I
mean?
mean, with the foreign accents, I really don't mind
Yeah.
because when you're playing a character for whom English is not their first language, you do have a lot of leeway because who's that character learn English from? Did they learn it watching American TV? So
Mm,
many young speakers end up getting an Americanized accent because of the TV they've watched or because of the way their teacher has learned English and has therefore taught them. How well do they speak English? How much do they know about the vagaries of English spelling and the irregularities of that kind of thing? Are they completely fluent? Do they know that you should say yacht and not yacht?
yeah.
Usually people don't. So it's really about, well, it's partly a kind of duel between how good is my English? I'm a really bad English speaker. I've got a really thick accent. But you still need to be, if you're in something, you need your lines to come across. You need
Mm,
clarity. So it's about kind of sometimes getting a bit of a compromise there. But yeah, so that doesn't bother me. General French, fine, whatever.
mm.
It would be good to know whether that person is from Paris or Marseille or Bordeaux or the Alps. But if you don't know, then it's probably for an American or English thing, and it's
Yeah.
for an American or English audience. And sure, you might piss off some French people, but it's kind of, it wasn't made specifically for them. General, yeah, general Northern and general Irish and general Scottish annoy me.
Mm,
Um, um, General Australian as well. I mean, yeah, it's really nice to get specific, but again, if an English or American person is doing that accent, it's probably not for the Australian market.
mm.
So So there kind of is a general Australian accent for us.
Yeah. Yeah, is it possible, like, because one thing you mentioned now is that someone who's learned English via American TV, like for example, I can't tell you how many people I've heard stories of people who watched Friends
Oh God, yeah.
all the time, and then that's how they learned English. Like
Yeah.
if they weren't brought up in the States or the UK or any other sort of English speaking country. Is it possible for, and I think I speak from my own experience here, but is it possible like for someone who with like say if you're in St Albans or something like that and you hear an accent from like the East End of London, like a proper like Cockney kind of gritty sort of like it was like how we doing this morning, all right, and you hear all this stuff. Is it possible like for us to kind of because as actors we pick up on accents and we hear things and we hear the rhythms, the sounds, and everything like you do. Like I suppose what I'm trying to say is a bit of a silly question, but sort of can our accent adapt, in our life simply around being around other people, like speaking in a different way?
Yes. Oh, I think most people do quite naturally. It's an empathy thing. It's about wanting to make the other person feel comfortable and also to fit in. It's usually subconscious. I think many more people than not are that kind of accent sponge, and their
Mm.
accent will change depending on who they're with. I know I do it. I see lots of people around me doing it. My mom does it. Some people are complete fortresses and they don't change at all. One of my mum's best friends is also from Glasgow, and he's lived in St Albans for 50 years now, and he is still broad Ouija. Cannot, you cannot you can take the boy out of Glasgow, but you cannot take the Glasgow out of that boy.
Mm.
And so yeah, some people don't change at all, but they tend to be the outliers.
Yeah.
So
Is
yeah,
it?
and I think that's another thing about the spectrum of neutral English accents. It's so much more varied now, and it is everywhere. Well, it is in most places. We have so many more hybrid accents now because it's so different than even like 30 years ago, when many more people would grow up in a place, meet someone in that place, have a baby in that place, raise the baby in that place. It's now, I think it's just so much more common now for two people to grow up in two different places, meet in another place, have a baby in another place, raise that baby in another place, and then move to another place. And
Mm.
so I hear so many young people who have ostensibly a very posh RP accent, and then they'll do something completely not RP,
Mm.
because their mum's from Manchester, or they spent their formative years in America or something like that, and yeah, it's fascinating, and therefore I think there are just certain standardizations that you do need to have in terms of accents, because casting directors are going to want that. But in terms of how actual human beings sound, I would hope that the industry will catch up and just go, well, okay, it doesn't have to be. It's not necessarily not posh to say Bath, because plenty of posh people I know say Bath.
Bath. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm going to Bath this weekend. What?
Oh,
That's Bath. Lovely place,
but
by the way.
I mean, the people in Bath.
Yeah, people in Bath are absolutely marvelous, darling. Yeah, they've been to the Roman baths. We had a lovely tour guide the other day. Yes, yes. I didn't like the tour guide. Tour guide wasn't speaking very clearly.
No.
I don't know. I couldn't hear a word he was saying. The bastard had paid good money for that shit. Anyway, but got carried away there. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I love this work. This is great. You pick up on stuff and you sort of morph into it. Like for example, like again, I grew up in St Albans, being like my grandmother was an English teacher. She probably spoke like, sorry, neutral standard English, sort of like very well spoken, very clear. I to the T to the E to the C, and then I went to work in like my local when I was at university, so on and off, and I was around people from the East End, people who born and bred like Lambeth area, that sort of thing. And they would just talk to me and they would go, "How we doing?" And then I just couldn't help but pick it up. And then next thing you know, I'm putting their like pints down on the table, so there you go, sunshine. And I'm like, and I'm going, well, where did that come from? And you can probably hear it now. There's a bit of, well, if you can, there's just a hint of like the East End, like it sticks, this
Yeah.
stuff, and I can't really shake it off. I don't know, nor am I trying to anyway. It's just how I talk. But how's that possible? Just It just
Well, like
felt
I say,
right.
it's and especially when you're younger and those neural pathways are really plastic and your kind of key learning periods for different things occur at different times. And for language, I think it's open for longer.
Mm.
Probably because you need to keep learning vocabulary as you're getting older. So, I mean, I know that I was really, really good at languages at school and learning lines all through school and drama school. I had an excellent memory. My God, it was so good, and because everything was just like ready to go, and especially when you learn stuff. I'm sure there are other things that you really stick with you when you learn stuff around that age, but certainly things to do with language, linguistics, and to an extent accent, because of those things, will stick with you more around that time.
Yeah, and it's just yeah how like I wonder what's the word? Is it lexicon?
Mm.
Is that a word? I'm not sure.
It's a word, yeah.
Yeah, is
Yeah,
that a,
a
is
lexicon
that
is a collection of vocabulary.
okay? Yeah, I just thought that collection. Okay, for some reason I thought yeah Mel Gibson used that word like when he was doing Braveheart. Like he would surround himself with people just all from Scotland, and he's
Right. Didn't do much good, I'm afraid.
no, I did I like his performance.
Does he listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mel.
No,
It's a
sorry,
great
Mel.
film.
No, no, we love you, man. We're just yeah, but yeah, his accent, you can definitely still hear the Aussie in there. You can, but no, but all the same, Mel, we love the film, and you're amazing. But yeah, like you surround yourself with. I suppose that's a good lead on to. Actually, no, I'll get to that in a second. I've had this question in my head the last few moments. One thing that, as you might be aware, on Netflix at the moment, there's a show called Bridgerton,
Yeah.
and you know, there's now, if anyone, I think there's again going back to the neutral standard thing, but I think would I be right in saying that you know anyone who wants to know like specifically what like a standard British accent or is or what it should sound like, is Bridgerton the best example?
Maybe not because, I mean, they're not doing period accents. Again, we don't know how people sounded exactly then.
Exactly.
And B, it might become unintelligible and it might become alienating for them to try and speak in the way that people did in the 1800s. In the 1700s, 18th century is what I meant to say.
Mm.
Or are they, is it 19th century? Is it early? I don't know. Whenever it is with the
Yeah,
empire.
it's before our
Um,
time. Yeah,
it's before our time. It's before people recorded voices. So they're doing a modern version, and I think it is maybe a bit posh. Most of the characters are maybe a bit posh
yeah,
for what people normally need in auditions. And hey, you know, if Bridgerton keeps going, it's good to have that. And you've got all sorts of things like Saltburn and to an extent Rivals, which again it's a little bit of a period accent, but still
yeah.
it's a modern posh, which is useful to have because stuff like that is being made. But it is more useful to do the less posh version. And so many people come to me having learned a too posh version because that's easier because there are more rules.
Mm.
And I like my agent keeps telling me it's too posh. My feedback is that it's too posh. What do I do? And so generally, I'm very, very often helping people with that
Mm.
and saying, right, this still belongs to the neutral accent. And if you take it further than that, then you will go estuary or cockney or MLE, and it will be a different accent. But that doesn't mean that that person couldn't speak like that.
Mm.
But it's good for people to kind of have the tools and just have the awareness so that when they're then listening to different speakers around them or different speakers on TV, they can identify those things, pick them up and cement them in their brains and
Mm.
just have a whole toolbox to whack out. So when that casting director does say, can you make it less posh? Can you make it more posh? They know what to do, or they know at least like 3 or 4 tricks that they can immediately employ.
Yeah. Talking of tricks, you know, you've got one thing that I learned was that you find like the accent has a specific place in the mouth or something like that. So, for example, again, there's another very good. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Simon Pegg did this thing where he he said he could do like the accent of all 4 of the Beatles, like depending on where it was in the mouth.
Amazing.
I'm going to butcher this. I can't remember how it goes, but it was like whichever one it was. So one was like over the top there, and the other was kind of low, sort of down here, and then the next one I went Scottish there. They're from Liverpool, but one's towards the back and one's towards the front, like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yes. I think Ringo's towards the back. I think
yeah.
George was up there.
I think
Uh,
yeah, George,
uh,
yeah, Ringo's at
yeah,
the back, George is up
yeah.
there, and the other two was Paul was somewhere else. I can't remember.
I don't think Paul's the nasal one. I think Paul's the the one in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they, they had their own accents. They had that period version of Liverpool plus, everything else that they were surrounded by. So that certainly Paul McCartney's accent, it's not identifiably Liverpool.
No,
It's his own.
it's his own.
Paul
Yeah.
McCartney.
It's just Paul McCartney, yeah. But that's the thing. So when people come to you saying, I've got to learn, so someone's coming to an accent completely fresh. Like, for example, if they're learning, let's say Scouse, for example, like they're coming to it completely fresh, and then so never done it before. So where do you start? Do you find the placement in the mouth first? Like, well, where do you start?
Well, what I tend to do with any accent when someone's coming to it completely fresh is, yes, I start talking about those technicalities, about the placement, about the way the articulators are held, the facial setting, oral posture, a little bit about the rhythm and the energy and the tune. But people don't retain that stuff until you've gone through the basic sounds with them. So they sort of nod and go, okay. But then I tend to move on quite quickly to just going through some sentences that concentrate on one vowel at a time. And obviously then you're going to get through a lot of consonants as well. And that will be really useful because I can listen to the vowel and the consonants and kind of tweak that and say, remember I talked about the fact that you got to like spread your lips and like the sound is like spilling out of the sides of the mouth like that. Yeah. That's because your tongue's really high. So that sound is going to be like that because your tongue's high at the back.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, yes, you did say that. Yes. And if they are in touch with how to move their articulators consciously, and lots of people find that very difficult, and you've got to kind of work towards that and try other things. Then they can start doing that. And then also as you're going and each of the sentences that I use to start with, of course, they've got little conjunctions and prepositions and those building blocks of words that link everything together, that in every accent, certainly in every native accent of English, we throw them away in various ways. We might neutralize them. We might just do something with them, and every accent's neutral sound is different as well because of that different facial setting. So, for example, one massive thing with people coming to a general American accent, or at least coming to the details of a general American accent for the first time, is that it's really good for flow, because it's a flowy accent, a general American accent, to change most twos, T-O, to D, as often as possible. You usually can't change an initial T to D. That would usually be one in the middle of a word. But like if you say, I'm going to the store, that sounds much flowier and more natural than I'm going to the store. That second one sounds a bit like your usury.
Yeah,
a little bit. So it's not to say that doesn't happen. It's just that most of the time, especially in casual conversation, you'll probably soften most of them. It is so difficult to change those tiny words. And I'll have to keep telling people over and over again, but those will keep coming up. So we get to practice it over and over again. Lots to think about. And it can feel the way the analogy I use, because I'm a bad dancer, despite all that dancing, we did a drama school, is it's like choreography for the face. Because when most of us learned to speak, it was subconscious because we didn't have a fully formed conscious while we were learning consciousness while we were learning to speak. So articulators were learning to make those shapes in imitation of the people around us without engaging our brain to do so.
Yeah.
And so then to tell your articulators to do some different things, to place your tongue in a different way, to not drop your jaw or to drop your jaw, to not round your lips, to spread them, to really round them, to do something that is completely different, to relax the back of the tongue, to raise the back of the tongue, all sorts of different things. To do that consciously feels really jerky to start with. And it's like when I have to learn a dance or a movement piece for theatre, which I quite often do, I think being tall and thin, people think I look like I should be able to dance, and they go, oh, we'll get her to do a scene change ballet, and I'll be like, okay, fantastic.
I'd take that off your spotlight if I was you.
But if someone very patient takes me through each individual move and I write it down and I video them and I then practice it until I'm doing it in my sleep, then I can make it look like I'm a good dancer. And you know, I've been obsessed with accents my whole life, so that comes naturally to me, but it doesn't for most people. I'm quite rare. And so you've got to take them through every single thing and reiterate things and get them to practice as much as they have time to do. And then they can make it sound like they're good at accents.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, and it does help you to become better at accents because you know how much work goes into each one. So the next time you come to starting work on another accent, you know what to listen for and you know what you are doing. You know what your facial setting is and you know how to change it because most people haven't thought about that.
Yeah. It's yeah, exactly. I've never heard it described in that way. It's choreography for your face.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a facial workout because
Yeah.
it's more than just trying to make a sound. It's more like supporting yourself. Like I didn't realize Scouts, and you know, I just said like your tongue's really high at the back
Yeah.
there, you know, and if you just lift it up, it just changes everything. It's great, and yeah, Scouse accent's great. I think it's one of the best ones to do. What's your favorite one to do?
Yeah, that's a constant question. It depends what mood I'm in. I love a Geordie. I love all Irish accents. So I love a Northern Irish accent. I love an Australian accent. I love an East Midlands accent. I love a Nottingham accent so much.
Yes. What is Nottingham? What's Nottingham?
Right. So let me just get into this. There we go. The thing about everywhere in the Midlands, right, is that you get a mix of North and South.
Mm.
That's obviously you do because you're in the middle. But I don't know. There's something about Nottingham that's like it's got that open mouth, but then it's got like oh no, which is really closed, and it's
Okay.
like the rhythm of it's really weighty, and they say rarely, which I
Really?
don't know. I
Yes.
just it's rarely. So really, it sounds like rarely, like it doesn't happen very
Really? Yeah, they do. Yeah.
yeah, they do. And I don't know, could be that my dad was from Northampton, which doesn't sound like this at all.
Mm.
The only sound I can really do in Northampton is to say, okay, okay.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that sounds like my uncle. But I don't know. It's because I worked on a film that was set in Nottingham and I helped like 20 people with this accent. And I just grew to love it. It's just like
Mm.
also you've got all those amazing films like This Is England where you get lots of East Midlands accents in there, Nottingham, Derby,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I don't know, it's such a happy place for me to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I think ever since Peaky Blinders launched, I think everyone wants to do a Birmingham accent. I think. Yeah.
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 Although they're kind of making their own accent up in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good show, but I feel Cillian Murphy's got a good grasp of Birmingham.
Yeah, yeah, he's not bad.
Yeah. But the others, like, I thought they were all from Birmingham, but you got Cillian Murphy, who's from Birmingham, the Tommy Shelby Birmingham, and then the other ones, one sounds like a Cockney, the other one sounds like someone who's been to Birmingham but for 5 minutes, but trying to fit in. And yeah, and the accents are all over the place in that. I mean, it's a good show, but yeah, I suppose that's another thing, really. I suppose when you're watching something and the accents are not very good, do you just sit there and go, okay, just
Yes, I do. I'm a nightmare. And because I'm incredibly picky because I have trained myself because some people come to me and they're nearly perfect. And so my job then is to go, okay, right, what can I say to you? And try to really, really dig deep and find out what is making it not quite perfect and what they might possibly do to change that. So my ear, I cannot switch it off. My ear for those kind of details. I mean, my poor boyfriend will start watching something new with someone putting on an accent, and after about 15 minutes, he'll pause it and go, right, do you want to get it all out? Do
yeah,
you want to talk about it? And then when we can carry on and you can shut up. Or like if we're watching something and I'm not sure because I've not seen an actor before,
mm,
or I have maybe, but I'm not entirely sure where exactly they're from. Like if they're American, what state they're originally from, and they're doing an accent I've not heard them do before. I will be there with my phone, Googling all these people, finding out where they're originally from, and going, yes, when I get it right, or like, oh, interesting when I don't.
mm.
So yes, certainly it's a testament of a really good actor if they're doing a bad accent, but I still have a good time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You sit there and go, well, at least they're enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard a lot of bad accents that the person has just got the flavor of it. They've got the rhythm of it. They've got the energy of it. They've got the vibe of it. They're just not doing the right sounds all the time. And if they're really good, you forgive them because you're like, well, fine.
Yeah. Yeah, what's oh God, we're gonna go back to that accent thing again just very quickly. But you know the difference between like you mentioned, like if you go to Leicester and it's almost like they speak like I don't know if I get this right, but it's like it's not sitting cross-legged on a mountain. It's not going on quests and fasts, you know, and then suddenly it goes back to and like it's like you reach the border where the accent just likes to change. Yeah, which is interesting. I tell you what, I don't know if this has a category, this one, but you know, the Queen. The royal
Yes,
family.
yes, I think that is a category because the royal family, especially the Queen, I mean, that's not even heightened RP. That's its own thing. And there are various things that belong to that kind of accent, which was obviously was useful for people to learn for a while because they might have been cast in The Crown. Um,
Very
uh,
true.
and I think they must the accent coaches on The Crown did such an epic
Oh,
job.
fantastic.
Amazing because it's so. I mean, you do catch Claire Foy saying Duke a couple of times, which is not okay. But she's from Manchester,
Yeah.
and it is, other than that, it's flawless. It's amazing. But it's a whole different setting. It's the jaw is really tight, the lips
That's
are red. I'm exaggerating, but it is a lot higher
yeah.
because there's a lot of tension there. Whereas opposed to, a more kind of traditional heightened RP, there's a lot of jaw drop. There's really relaxed lips,
Mm.
and there's more resonance because there's more space in the mouth, and therefore there isn't that kind of strain and tension, and it's not all closed up like that.
Yes. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Again, picking up on stuff. Yeah, I think there's one. I think Claire Foy actually did an interview. I think she did Graham Norton a few years ago actually, and she said that she said she's Mancunian, like you just said. And the one thing that she managed to get, like one thing she really had to practice was the word one. So
Yes,
she
yes.
would
Oh,
go,
it's the downfall of every northerner. They
yeah,
really want to say one. And why wouldn't you? It's spelled with an O.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
getting people that are really, really good at RP, if they come from Yorkshire or Manchester or Lancashire, they are going to find that really hard. One.
yeah. It's like she said, like they're literally about to do a take, and she's going one, one, one,
Yeah.
one, one, and it's like one. It's like
Yes.
yes, we went to the sea one time. Oh damn
Yeah,
it! Sorry,
yes.
sorry. Can we do it again? Yeah, no, I remember one, Claire, one. But yeah, and there's oh, I have another question. It's just disappeared. But yeah, you've got again so many different accents. Everything. It's absolutely brilliant. I was gonna that question. Oh, it'll come back anyway. It'll come back in a minute. Anyway, I want to get on to very quickly your acting work, and we spoke in the beginning about your work with the Factory Theatre, and you've done the Scottish play there. You've done Julius Caesar. Tell me about Julius Caesar, where you played not only Caesar but more than one character.
Yeah, so I played 12 parts in that play so far. So we're actually doing two shows next week. One on I'm not going to be in the one on Tuesday because I'll be in France, but the one on Tuesday is in Camden somewhere. Sorry, and the one on Thursday is at Bold in Elephant and Castle. Let me just Google their website so I can tell you their website
Yeah,
to
of course, of
go
course.
to if you want to get tickets. But the premise of the factory is that we get together and we choose a Shakespeare play, and it's been Julius Caesar for a couple of years now, and we hang on, Factory Theatre. Oh God, sorry. We read the text with our books in hands and play games with it and make sure we know exactly what's happening. Their website is factorytheatre.co.uk.
Cool. It's down below, guys. Down
With
below.
the best.
Yeah.
Okay, there's that. I'll just click on it and absolutely make sure that that is right. Yeah, that's us. So we play around with it, and then after a couple of months of playing around with it, we'll assign. Well, you will be asked, do you want a big part, a medium part, or a small part? And initially I said a medium part first, and then eventually I'd like to work up to a big part. So initially I learned Casca and Caesar,
Hmm.
I played both of those. And just the reason I played so many parts is there's just a lot of little parts to mop up as well.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
played
yeah.
lots of other people. And then eventually it took me about a year, but I learned Brutus. Took me about a year because it's all unpaid and other stuff is happening. And there's a lot of it. So I've now played Brutus as well.
Brutus has like a third of the show. Yeah, it's called Julius. It should be called Brutus, shouldn't it?
There's lots of Shakespeare plays that should be called something else. Cymbeline, he's got like one scene.
Yeah.
That's why they did an adaptation at the Globe a couple of years ago and they called it Imogen, because that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do that. We learn the part. When we're ready, they'll find a venue. They'll make sure that there's enough people to fill out a cast, and you'll probably get a text saying, "Sorry, I know you're playing this part. Can you play this other little part as well and just put on a different hat?" We're not allowed to differentiate our characters in any other way other than maybe a small costume change. We can't do a silly voice or an accent, sadly. I know. And we can't do a different physicality or something like that. It just we have to just try and make it as clear as we can through the text and maybe a hat.
Literally just
that's definitely been a choice. So and then we turn up, and it just means it's comfort zone pushing to the absolute extreme, because every time you do it, the cast will be at least slightly different. Probably you'll be working with some people you've never worked with before, maybe even never met before, because there's a huge amount of people in the company, and it just depends who's free. And who knows those parts. So, and the location is often different. When I played Brutus, it was in the Barbican, the bit around the complex itself, so outside the complex. Amazing. There's like a couple of little tiny amphitheaters there. There's a fountain. There's loads of like concrete walkways and stuff. It was great, but it was the acoustics were not ideal. Nope. So there was a lot of shouting there, but supported shouting. But yeah, it's terrifying. I remember the first time I did it, I played a messenger. I had 2 lines. I don't know if I've ever been so scared in my life.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, those 2 lines. You think about those 2 lines all the time. And okay, then it's my bit. Okay, I'm next, and you go, "Hello, thank you." I just walk back.
I will, my lord. Yes, totally, absolutely. And the first time you do it, there's no point in trying to be good. Just do your job.
Yeah.
Make it clear, and then phew, and then hopefully next time you will be less panicky, and you can maybe do some good acting if you have enough lines to do any good acting.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's for me, it's it's such a lot of work for zero money, but it's, and because we have to have small audiences, because often we're in a venue where you can't have a big audience. When you're wandering around the Barbican trailing a group of people after you, it doesn't make sense for there to be more than about 30 of them. So you'd put all this, I put a year's worth of work in, and 30 people saw me play Brutus. But I did it. And that afterwards was absolutely euphoric. And the fact that I wasn't the best performance of Brutus you've ever seen, or that those 30 people had ever seen, but I think I said the right lines in the right order. I came on when I needed to come on. I went off when I needed to go off.
Yeah.
And I was like, and with no rehearsal.
Mm.
And I was really, really proud of myself.
So you should. I do have one question though. If you're playing Brutus and Caesar, how did you do?
That you can't do that.
Yeah, how did you do the et tu, Brute scene?
But you don't do that. If you're doubling, then you make sure that it's not 2 people in the same scene.
So it was cut.
No, it's a big cast. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you literally just like change around. You go et tu, Brute, so full Caesar, and then just okay now.
No,
Brutus.
you've got someone playing Caesar and someone playing Brutus.
Yeah. So there's always someone else there.
Yeah, it's a big cast. There's like
okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah, I always thought that would be like very GCSE drama. It's like, what do you do? I don't know.
Yes, well, I mean, I've done plenty of that in my career.
Yeah, we all have.
Myself in multi-rolling and small casts and swapping hats. But yes, no. I mean, no, in the factory, yes. If it doesn't make sense, like they're on different sides and they're in the same scene, so absolutely not. You would never do that double. Yeah. Yes, I mean, occasionally maybe someone has to play 2 people in one scene, but we'll make it as though if they're on the same side, then you just say all the lines and you make it as though that character is the same person, which people do in adaptations of Shakespeare all the time, because there's plenty of characters that are in one scene and then disappear again. You're like, what about that guy from scene one who said loads, who's now not in it anymore? I know, we'll make them the same guy.
Exactly. Exactly. We're making the same person. I just want to ask you quickly about your audiobook experience. You've done more than 10 of these things.
I would say more than 50.
More than 50, my word. But you've done all these audiobooks and everything. And again, just going back to the voice stuff that we talked about before, for anyone who, I'm pretty sure some of you know how audiobooks are recorded. You go into a studio, you have the book in front of you, you've got a nice microphone, you've got people in the booth opposite, you read the book out loud from start to finish, and then you just do different takes of different things for what you want to do. Anyway, you know how it goes. So what's your experience of over 50 audiobooks of sitting down and speaking into a microphone with someone else's words in front of you?
Yes, well, as I said, I find it very meditative. I really enjoy it when there's lots of different voices because that's my forte, and that's quite often why they get me in. Or like different languages. Like I did a sample for something recently where I had to speak French, and my agent was like, "Is this all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, baby," because it wasn't complicated French. Because my French is conversational but not fluent. So if it had got poetic, I would have been a bit lost. But it was just like, yeah, it was fairly basic. So, and because I am really good at flipping between accents, which again takes a lot of practice, but I have a lot of practice at that all the time. I really enjoy doing that. And as I said, I'm just good at sight reading, and I practice it a lot, so I remain good at sight reading. And I just enjoy the fact that it doesn't feel much like work to me. And at the end of the day, I'll be tired because sitting down and reading is not hard. But when you've done it for an 8-hour stint, it is a little intense. And then you then do that for 3, 4, 5 days. It is quite a lot. But I don't really feel that tiredness till the end of the day, and then I'm knackered.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Then my boyfriend cooks me a lovely dinner, and I go back the next day, and I don't know. It feels like a small holiday, really. Get to have nice lunch, cups of tea. I don't know. I really like variety. A change is as good as a rest, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'm usually teaching all the time. So when I'm doing an audiobook, it's just something different. It's still work, but it's something different, and it feels really revitalizing.
Yeah, exactly. You hear stories about people, like some people like really engaging with actors. They think we love actors who can do audiobooks who are so relaxed in the room, and I think one lady said she worked with Bill Nighy one time, and she said it was the best because he was so relaxed, he didn't complain, he gave us so many different ways of the script reading it. We said, right, can you do it like this? And go, yeah, sure. Can you do it like this? Yeah, of course. And there's so many different ways that you do. Obviously I only pick one, but it's nice to hear the variety, of course. But yeah, what's it like when, what like the typical kind of notes that you get, or like suggestions you get from the feedback booth when you're doing audio stuff?
Yeah, well, it varies. Sometimes at some studios you don't get any feedback, and it's just say the words, and sometimes that's going to be the case, and so you just make sure you've done your prep in advance, and you've made those character choices, and you'll hopefully have a dialogue with the author or the publishing people saying, oh, I've got a question about this. Do you think I should do it like this or that? Or they'll already have told you they want it like this or that. And the rest is up to you. Working at Penguin is especially fun because you do tend to get someone who really will direct you. And so suggestions will be, I did a thriller a couple of weeks ago, which was... it involves doing different voices in that a character disguises herself using her voice because the antagonist is blind. So she doesn't want him to know who she is. So kind of doing that, changing her voice, but then also making sure that was distinct from other people. Like, so her voice was lower when she was disguising it, and that was in the text. But then, of course, when I'm playing a male character, I'm putting on a lower voice. So we need to make sure that lower disguised voice doesn't sound like the guy at the gym that she works with. who is from the same area, so would have a similar accent and
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah,
so therefore has a low voice. So it's really helpful to have someone go, nah, that sounded like Tommy again.
yeah.
So let's go back and do that. Or like, dramatic moments. Oh yeah, let's slow down there and really punch out that bit. Or let's lean into the mic and make that line creepier because, for extra drama for this thriller. Oh yeah, all sorts of things. And then sometimes there are a million pronunciations that you have to look up that are from dead languages, Latin, Aramaic, so it's difficult to actually find a consensus on how that word should be said. And sometimes you'll spend hours trying to just sort out
Yeah,
what those should be, and then forgetting and having to do it again.
yeah,
So yeah, you'll always get help from that person who's there to help you. It just sometimes manifests in different ways.
yeah. So how can you find like a different sound in the same accent?
Yeah, well, changing the way your articulators are placed, changing your tone. So, when I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing to go lower. I'm just going lower or I'm going higher. I mean, to an extent, that's to do with slightly where my tongue is placed, how high it is and how far back it is. Maybe I want to just go a bit pharyngeal, which means placing it in the throat, a bit like that. Or maybe I want to go a bit nasal and place it in the nose a bit more like that. Yeah, generally just something as simple as, because I'm really good at kind of shuffling along that spectrum
Mm,
of RP. If you get told, oh, all these characters are from London, so there'll all be a variation of RP leaning into estuary, leaning into Cockney, leaning into really posh. And if there's, a couple of posh people talking to each other, then maybe one sounds a bit more old fashioned and one sounds younger.
yeah,
And it's just, I can switch between those really easily because I practice it all the time.
yeah. It's funny because I feel like I sit in the base of my voice, like right here at the back. Yeah, and like it's yeah. So, I mean, you always find like characters who are sort of drawn to like one area, but then it's interesting how he can just jump in between
Mm.
stuff, which is really really interesting. But yeah, but I suppose it's fun doing that when when you've got your own little world and everything that we do as artists is because we love it and it's a lot of fun, and you know um listen, I find it just very quickly. I find it interesting. When you hear yourself back, like on audio or something like that, and you're like, oh, is that how I sound? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah,
definitely. Oh yeah, 100%.
yeah,
And I hear it all the time because my agent will put up little clips of books that I've recorded, and of course I want to post my achievements because that's what you're supposed to do. And then I'll have to listen to a clip of myself and be like, what? Oh yeah. Oh no, I don't think that goes away. I don't think there's many people that
yeah,
like the sound of their own voice.
yeah. Did you always find like, do you remember like the old? I don't know if you used to if you left like a personal voicemail greeting on your phone when people try and call you or something, but when you hear it back and you're like, I sound nothing like that. Who
I
is this person?
know. Oh
Yeah.
no, I hate it.
Yeah, it's like I think like as we're recording on Zoom now or something like if we're to meet in person, you probably look like completely different to how we look on the screen. Like we sound completely different than we hear on the phones. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinating one. But cool. I just got a few more things left for you, Alex. Then we can sort of wrap up. So again, you've got your own business, you've got your website and everything, and I implore people to come and, just hearing your accent work even today has just been fascinating. Like we're talking where we are in our homes right now and then been transported to Nottingham, to France, to New York or something. You've got a real talent, congratulations about on that. But, so a sort of bit of a plug really for your business and everything. Again, the website is down below. Why should people come to you specifically to help them with their accents?
Well, I mean, I don't stop working, so they
That's a
can
good sign.
they can also go to someone else because I'm really busy. But I think my unique selling point is that I take notes as we're going, and I then create a voice note summary of what we've done for people, and it tends to really help if the people then transcribe that for themselves in a way that makes sense to them, because as an actor myself, I've often been given, and this happened at drama school as well, we
Yeah.
were given lots of sheets of paper that said, this is how you do this accent. And they'd have phonetics on them. And fine, I love phonetics. I
Yeah.
love languages. Not a hardship for me to learn a different alphabet. Fantastic. Most people don't want to do that. And
Mm.
most people are going to find that really confusing to see lots of symbols on their page when they're making notes. So
Yeah.
I think for everyone, it's important to come up with their own shorthand. And whether that's, a bit of phonetics, the odd symbol that's like a smiley face to remind them to spread their lips at a certain point, or an ooh face to remind them to round their lips, something like that. Whatever helps them to immediately look at the piece they have and go, aha, I know the code for that. It's to do this. So and also when you get handed that piece of paper that says this is how you do this accent, it's how someone does that accent, probably me, because I have a fairly neutral RP accent. But it's not how an Italian does that accent. It's not how an American does it. It's not how someone from Leeds does it.
No.
They have to kind of start with RP and then read these phonetics to go, this is how you should change it, which is not fair. So, and again, because, lots of people I work with haven't been to drama school. Some have, but they didn't do as much voice as I did. They didn't have as much involved accent coaching as I did. And they don't have that basis. And so they can't just look at a piece of paper and go, yes, I understand. They're like, no, start me from the top. So I need to know what exactly to put in their notes so that they can go back and listen to them, reread the transcription that they've made of it, and it can make sense for them, rather than in 6 months coming back to it and going, I don't know what this means anymore. So that, and also just I'm really patient. I people so often will say to me, "God, I'm really sorry, I'm not getting it." I'm like, "But you will, and that's going to be amazing." Yeah. So for me, the joy of someone finally getting it, even if it's taking them weeks, is definitely worth them not getting it and me trying to find that way that will help them to get it. So yeah, I'm nice.
Yeah, you're nice, and that's good. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
But just very quickly, who's your favorite celebrity to impersonate?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Jennifer Coolidge is a fun one that immediately springs to mind. Like, Portia, get your shit together. That wasn't very good. These gays, they're trying to murder me. That wasn't very good either. Oh, I don't know. I mean, what a question. I don't know. Well,
Okay. That's all right. Just off the cuff there. But yeah. So there's all these amazing things that you've done, and finding the sounds and the rhythms and everything. It's a real skill. It's a really interesting area, and you've done some amazing stuff with it. And yeah, please, guys, if you want to check her out, like I say, website's below. You need help with accents, you got it, Alix. Cool. So yeah, just got a few more things left for you, Alix. So let me think. Is there anything I haven't covered today? Oh yeah, there's one question I had earlier, which was, so how do people, I mean, this might be quite obvious, but so if people want to get into audio work, what's the best way to get it done? Do you ever talk with your agent? Do you go with a specific type of agent? What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, some agencies do all of it, and I have my acting agent, I have my voiceover agent, and sometimes with my acting agent, they'll get me something that is voice based, and they'll be like, "Oh, should we collaborate with your voice agent on this?" Which is nice, and sometimes they do, and sometimes it's like, it's a little thing. We'll just do it through you. Same with my voiceover agent. If something comes in with mocap, which will be a heavy amount of acting and like screen time, they'll be like, we can split the commission with your acting agent. Let's talk about that if you get it. I think it's best, and I don't know because I got my voiceover agent 10 years ago, but I think it's best to get a show reel, a voice reel done. There's lots of places where you can spend your money doing that. Ask around people that have done them to just find out where a good place would be, and you can do it yourself if you've got a good setup, good mic and good soundproofing, and you listen to a few voice reels and just work out what you need. You can do it yourself, absolutely, but maybe it would be less stressful to pay someone to do it if you can afford it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Then send that voice reel around. Again, ask around, find out what voiceover agents are good. Send your voice reel around, see if you get any bites, and keep trying if you don't, because like anything with acting, you've just got to keep the faith and keep trying.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep trying, guys. Keep trying, and you'll get there. So yeah, just got two more things now for you, Alex. So sort of closing questions for every guest is the first one is, what would you say was a bit of advice you wish you heard when you were starting out?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I knew because they kept telling us it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah,
Um, I guess I would have liked to have known when I first came out that if you don't hear about an audition within probably a couple of days, you probably haven't got it. Because I kept hoping for loads of things because my
yeah,
agent was like, "Oh, we haven't heard, so you never know," and I didn't get any of them. So it would have been better to start getting used to. Oh, I knew the theory that you come out of the audition, and this is when we had in-person auditions and we printed out scripts. You come out of the audition and you put the script in the bin because yeah, maybe you'll get a recall, but don't think about it. Move on.
yeah,
Do something, go and get a coffee and do something else with the rest of your day. And of
yeah,
course, you can't stop yourself entirely thinking about it, but it's really tough out there. There's so many people going for these things, and if you don't hear after a couple of days, depending on the thing, you
yeah,
probably haven't got it. Of course, some things after a couple of months they'll come in and go, "Oh yeah, you're filming next Tuesday," and you'll be like, "What?"
huh?
It does happen,
Yeah,
um, but usually, if you don't hear quite soon, you haven't got it, so move on.
yeah,
Um, that would have been good. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, just just ultimately, just don't let the work sort of define you. Like, and don't let auditions get on top of you and stuff. And I think we all learn that the hard way. But
Yes, and we're human.
yeah,
If it gets on top of you, it gets on top of you, and have a cry, have a vent, pick your audience,
yeah,
because often, I mean, I'm all right because of my theatre background, so I could vent to my parents, but most people's parents aren't actors and therefore might be a bit confused.
yeah,
So vent to other actors that are also having a hard time. There's
yeah.
plenty of those.
Yeah, so know your audience. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a good one. And finally today, Alex, what would you say was an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to now that you'll never ever forget?
Um, well, two of the plays that I've done at the Finborough Theatre
Yeah,
were two of my absolute favourite things. So I did a play called London Wall in 2013,
yeah,
and I did a play called The Silver Cord this year, a couple of months ago,
yeah,
both of which that everything was just ideal. The cast were all incredibly brave and generous and good and hardworking, and willing and wanting to make every single performance fresh and within reason, try new things all the time and make it the best it could be. And I had amazing parts in both. In fact, in 2013, I was a 35-year-old at 30, and this year I was a 29-year-old at 42. So, you never know what your casting bracket is really. Um, so yeah, and both of them were just terrible money. So
yeah,
it's not about money. Other unforgettable experiences. Well, yeah, doing stuff with the factory always sticks in the mind. Doing the 39 steps,
mhm,
that was amazing. Um, Lots.
yeah. Lots of good stuff. Yeah, and also I forgot to say you had the Offie nomination as well for the silver chords and everything. So yeah,
Yes, that was for best ensemble. We were a very good ensemble.
you're a very good ensemble. You supported each other the whole way through. But have you had the results? Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Ah, so yeah, well, fingers crossed that you win
Yeah,
it. Do keep me in the loop in that. Let me know if you win, which I'm sure you
yeah.
will. But yeah, no, fantastic, Alex. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so very much for this. You've really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff about accents and stuff, and hearing that your everything your voice, the journey I've been on recently, and knowing that I'm coming out of that now, which is good. And it's like everything has a way back to
Yeah.
yeah. Some things, yeah, it may go off piste for, in my case, a few months, but it always finds a way back. And it's so good to be able to speak properly and sing again now, which has been
Yeah, that must have been really boring.
yeah, it was. I'll tell you what it was. It was like my voice was kind of stuck here. I don't know how to describe it. It was like my larynx had jumped from here to here, and
Yeah.
it just wouldn't go down at all. Like everything kept going like everything kept coming from here, like sort of singing just like that. But then eventually, thankfully, with the grandness and generosity of time, it has slowly kind of moved its way back down now. So I think I'm more about here now, which is good. So I just need to get it back down to about here. So, but it's on the mend and things are sounding much better. So thank you, vocal folds, chords, universe. Thank you for all that. But more specific, but more importantly, thank you, Alix, for today. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've learned so much from you, and yeah, still got so many more things left for you. You know, I'd love to have you back, and we've still got more things to talk about, but we'll get to those in the future. Brilliant stuff. Cool. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. We'll have a little debrief afterwards. I'll let you go. But yeah, cool. What an episode. Yeah, if you need accents, you go to Alix, guys, like I've already said. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I'll be back very, very, very soon. And brilliant stuff. Alix Dunmore, thank you very much.